The 2016 World Series of Poker $10,000 7-card stud championship kicked off today at the Rio. During a break in the action, we caught up with WSOP bracelet winner and card player contributor Ben Yu to discuss 7-card stud tournaments and how the format affects your decision making. One of the first things to consider is the size of the ante and how it might influence how often you try to steal or defend the bring-in.
So one thing you mentioned was the ante size, and this actually also comes up in no limit hold'em. Sometimes the ante size is small; it's 1/12 of the big bet. Sometimes it's large; it's like 1/6 or 1/8 of the big bet. And when it's bigger, there's more in the pot. You should play more hands and try to steal more. This is also true in no limit hold'em. So early on day one, like we are right now, that's mostly what I'm still treating this as a cash game, and I'm just trying to win the most chips as possible. So that's pretty much the only thing I'm paying attention to, whether I should be playing more or less hands. The difference between this and a cash game, though, is that the ante changes every level, which is why this is a consideration. In a cash game, if you're playing 30-60 with a 10 ante, that's a big ante, but you always know that. In this, we're playing a tournament where we were playing with a 1/12 ante, and then all of a sudden it went to a 1/8 ante, and that's, every hour, that's something you should be adjusting to and paying attention to. Tomorrow, once day 2 hits and you get closer to the money and everyone is short stacked, you'll start to pay attention to more short stack things for sure.
In an article he wrote on stud tournament stack management, you also recommended c-betting less on 4th and 6th streets as one way to avoid making bets with small edges or with little or no fold equity. We asked him to further discuss this idea.
So a typical basic heuristic in stud strategy is basically that you don't really fold 4th street or 6th street, because once you've already called a small bet on 3rd street, it's still just another small bet on 4th street. So usually you're getting the right odds to call. Also, the same thing is true on 6th street. If you've called 5th street, that's usually where you need to make a decision on the hand, whether I'm going to continue, unless a very drastic set of cards come from you and your opponent. You're usually going to continue on 6th street. And this is the case for your opponents too. Your opponents know this too. They're not stupid. They've thought of this in advance too. So sometimes when you're betting 4th or 6th, it's mostly just for value or setting up a bluff on a later street. And sometimes if it's not worth it to do that because it's costing you some part of your stack, you're getting close to the bubble and you need to consider trying to preserve some chips to get a pay jump or to get into the bubble. So sometimes you just don't bother betting 4th or 6th street. Like your marginal value bets or a bluff you were going to set up later, you just decide to pass on because you're not folding, you're just putting extra money in the pot, you guys are just gambling bigger. Everyone else in the tournament is cheering that you're doing this. So you just say, hey, I don't need to do this, I'm going to pass on this. And you kind of need a really good reason to do this. You have to be, getting close to the bubble where that bet, and you have to be pretty short stacked where this bet is significant. You need a really good reason to do this. Otherwise, you should still be playing it as a cash game. But that's the reason to do it. And I think sometimes people, once I say this, people will misapply this and take it too extreme. But it is a good consideration, if you're short stacked, getting near the money, or looking for a pay jump soon.
Thanks to Ben Yu for sharing some advice about 7-card stud tournament play, and thank you for tuning in to this poker strategy video right here on Card Player TV.